Hi guys, in this video I will show you two of my favorite ways to join granny squares together. The visible way, using single crochet with the same crochet hook that we use to crochet our squares, and the invisible join using invisible stitch with our yarn needle. You can see here that for the invisible join I use the very contrast color, but the join it's almost invisible. You can see a little bit of red here, right here in the crossroad, but if you use this same color of yarn, it's gonna be completely invisible. I use this yarn because it's easier to give instruction. If you don't know how to make the single square yet, please check out my in-depth tutorial for Crochet Granny Square. I put a card right here on the screen, so you can click on that, or you can find the link in the description down below. When we are creating a granny square design, we will have to join multiple squares together side by side in a certain way, depending on the design. And it all starts with joining two squares together. And as simple as it looks, we're gonna join one side of this square together with one side of the other square. And to break it out even more, we're gonna join the stitch on this square together with the stitch in the same position on the other square. And so it is very important to understand the position of the stitches on the side of the square. And I'm gonna explain it a little bit so that it's gonna be easy for us to make a move when joining the squares together, okay? Now when you look at the side of the square, you will see it is a combination of stitches, and they are mostly these groups of 3 double crochet and the chain 1 between them. So groups of 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet, chain 1, and 3 double crochet. And what else is on a side of a square? This corner you see right here. When we crochet our granny square, we'll create the corner with 3 double crochet, chain 2, and 3 double crochet. And so you can see that this group of 3 double crochet belong to this side, and this 3 double crochet belong to this side. And obviously, this chain 2, one chain belong to this side and one chain belong to this side. So a side of the square is a combination of stitches starting from this chain of the corner and finish at this chain of the other corner right here. Okay, so from here to here. So to join stitch by stitch, we're gonna join this chain of this corner together with this chain and the first double crochet of this groups together, and move on, double crochet, double crochet, double crochet, double crochet, chain 1, all the way until this chain of this corner together with this chain of the corner on the other square. Now it might get a little confusing with the side of the square that has this tail coming out of it, but it actually no different. When you look at this tail, you see that it's coming out of this stitch right here, which we consider as a double crochet of this group, and it's actually not a double crochet, but it's a chain 2 that we create in the beginning of each round, and then we slip stitch, and on top of it is this V that looks not as defined as the other V. That is because this is the slip stitch that we use to join the round, and then we chain 1 to bind off. That's why there's a little bump where this tail come out of. And we're gonna consider this V, that slip stitch, as this first double crochet stitch. Alright, so we're gonna consider this stitch as in the same position with this stitch on the other square, okay? Sometimes this slip stitch might look very weird and it's hard for you to see, and you might confuse when you get to this part. It's okay, no worries. What you're gonna do is that you're gonna take any loops between this chain 1 of the corner and this middle double crochet of this group, okay? So if you cannot find this V, you take any loops you can see between these two stitches, the chain 1 and the middle double crochet. It's gonna be fine, okay? Now once we understand the position of the stitches, it's gonna be easier for us to make a move in joining the square. And first I'm gonna show you how to join two squares together. Then I will show you how it's like when 4 corners meet, okay? For the visible join, we're gonna use the same crochet hook that we use to crochet our square. And then you're gonna take your yarn and you want the front of the square to both face up like this, and then you put the square, the back of the squares together. Now we're gonna insert our yarn into this stitch, and remember, we're gonna start from one of the chain belong to the side that we are joining, and you see on both sides this V, right? So this one that face out, it's the outer loop, and on this square it's gonna be this one, okay? This one. And this, it's the inner loop. For the join, we're gonna use the outer loop only. So this outer loop of the V, okay? So this one, this one, this one. We're not gonna touch this inner loops, okay? So first take the outer loop of this chain and the outer loop of the chain of the other square. So this is the chain 2 in the corner. We take this one. Alright? Now you want to pull your yarn through those chain like that, and you're gonna tie it, leave a little bit of a tail like that. Alright? Now you want to insert a hook in the same place where you just tied your yarn and pull our loop like that. Chain 1. Okay, now we're gonna start single crochet along this side. And moving on to this first double crochet of this group, so take the outer loop and the outer loop on the other square, this one, okay? Draw our loop. You see now we have 2 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through. And that is one single crochet, okay? Moving on to this double crochet, take the outer loop of the stitch and the outer loop on the other square, single crochet, and we do the same with the next stitch, single crochet, and now it's gonna be the chain 1 between the groups, right? Take the outer loop, same on this square, you see the V of the chain between the groups. We take the outer loop like that, draw our loop, yarn over, pull through, and like so we're gonna do the same to all the loops on the side. Make sure that you always join the stitch in the same position on each square, okay? So it's gonna be just like that. I'm gonna meet you in the end right here in the corner and show you how it's like, okay? Alright, now you see that at the end I have this last double crochet of the last group with 1 chain of the corner, and I'm gonna finish that. Take the outer loop of this one and single crochet, and then the chain of the corner, take this one and this one to finish, single crochet, and that's it. Okay, now we're gonna bind off by chain 1 and cut, leave a tail. Okay, and that is how we join 2 squares together with the visible join of single crochet. And now I will show you how to join where 4 corners meet. Okay, we're gonna start at this point and it's gonna be pretty much the same. You insert your hook in this chain of the corner and do the same with the other square like that. We bring out the yarn and tie it up. Insert a hook in the same place, draw our loop, chain 1, and repeat the same thing that we did with the 2 squares together, and I will meet you right here in the crossroad to show you how it's like, okay? So always take the outer loop, okay? Starting with the first double crochet of the group and the middle one, make sure that the stitches are in the same position, okay? Okay, now you see that I'm closer to the crossroad and I have this last double crochet of this last group. I'm gonna finish it, and then with the chain of the corner, like so. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna insert our hook right here, take the first stitch, okay, like that, and then the same to this one, like so. You're gonna draw our loop out of these two things, draw our loop like that, and then yarn over, pull through, and we just made a single crochet in the crossroad. Okay, now we're gonna do the same thing on this square. Okay, we start with the chain of the corner, and the same thing on the other square, like so. And again, move on to this first double crochet in the first group, and the same one on the other square, and that's it. Alright, now I will show you how to do the invisible join with our yarn needle. And we're gonna need a strand of yarn that it's 3 times longer than a side of a square. So 1, 2, and 3. We should be generous with our strands of yarn, it's just gonna make things easier. Now we're gonna put this yarn into our needle, like so. And again, we're gonna need the front of the square to face up like this and put the wrong side together. And of course, we're gonna start with one of the chain in the corner that belong to this side that we are joining, right? And this is the outer loop of the V, this is the inner loop. So we're gonna take that inner loops, okay? And the same to the other square. And we're gonna take the inner loop, okay? This one, not this one. So take it, like so. And bring your yarn all the way until the end. And we tied it right here, leave a little bit of a tail. Okay, now we're gonna start working our invisible stitch. And what you're gonna do is that bring your needle into the same place that we just insert our yarn, okay? So you insert the hook in there, and then you will want to bring your needle out of the stitch right next to it, okay? So into this one and out of the stitch right next to it. Bring it out like that, okay? And you pull. Alright, now we're gonna move to the other square. Do the same thing, bring your needle in the same place where you tied your yarn here, and bring it out of the stitch right next to it, like that, okay? And pull all the way. Now you see that your working yarn end up in this square, that's why we're gonna move to the other square. And you see that on the other square, the yarn comes out of this stitch. That's why you're gonna bring your needle back into the same stitch, that same stitch, and bring it out of the stitch right next to it. Okay, put this tail out, hide it under. And now we move to the other square. Bring your needle in the same place you see your yarn came out of, into that same stitch, and out of the stitch right next to it. And again, we repeat the same. In here and out of the next stitch, to the other square, into this stitch and out of the stitch next to it. Again, into this stitch, out of the stitch right next to it. Into this stitch, out of this stitch. Okay, into this stitch, out of the stitch right next to it, into the stitch, out of the stitch right next to it. After a while, when you see that you have worked like about an inch, you will want to close this stitch up, and you're gonna hold it right here and pull tight. This working yarn, you pulled it, okay? And yeah, we just close up our stitch. Now we're gonna continue our work. You see this working yarn comes out of this square, so we're gonna start from the other square. look for the trace of the yarn. So you see it's right here. You want to bring your needle right back into that same stitch and out of the stitch right next to it. Just repeat the same thing all the way until the end. Okay, you see that I'm at the end. I have like this last double crochet in the chain of the corner. So I'm gonna finish that on this square, on the other square, on this square, into the last stitch of the group and out of the chain in the corner. And the same thing will happen here, into the last stitch of the group and the chain of the corner. And that's it. We're gonna pull one last time, and you're gonna want to bring this yarn into this same stitch right here, like that, and kind of just pull it and then stretch this join out a little bit. Adjust if you need it. And yeah, that's it. You can just cut it, leave a little bit of a tail. Okay. All right. Now I will show you what it's gonna happen in the crossroad with the invisible stitch. I'm gonna need a strand of yarn that is 3 times longer than this. Okay, so just be a little bit generous here. Cut. Put this yarn into your needle. We start with the same thing we did with 2 squares. So I'm gonna do it real quick. Insert my yarn needle into this chain with the inner loop all the way to the end and tight. And start sewing using our invisible stitch into the same place where we tied out of this first double crochet. Okay, hide this here. Into the same out of the first stitch and repeat. I'm closer to the crossroad, so I'm gonna into this and out of the chain, into this stitch, out of the chain, and I'm gonna pull tight. Okay, now what we're gonna do is that we move right on to these 2 square and repeat the same process. Okay, you see this yarn comes from this side, so we're gonna move to this side. You want to bring your needle right back in this chain of this corner, the same place where you see this yarn comes from. Okay, and bring it out of the chain in this corner, the chain that belongs to this side. Okay, out of it. Okay, it's a little bit hard here, but it's okay, like so. Okay, and do the same thing with this one. So this chain right here where you see your yarn comes from, insert your needle in the same place and out of the corner chain of this side, this one. Okay, and then we're just gonna do the same thing. Okay, back in here, out of the next stitch, then on this one, back in here, out of the next stitch, back in here, out of the next stitch, back in here, out of the next stitch. You need to like pull this, okay, and pull. And yeah.